Bitcoin is the only cryptocurrency with any value, full stop. I don't even believe in Ethereum.
This guy predicting the Bitcoin price target of 100K per Bitcoin in the next 2 years is Lawrence Lepard. He is a seasoned investor with a proven track record and is currently heading investment management firm Equity Management Associates. Listen to what he says, and then I'll explain everything in detail, like what the crux is and how we can use the current scenario to make money. I hope you're not playing these videos just to kill time. I mean, after all, I make videos which add to the knowledge of my audience and help them make better informed decisions. Listen carefully, and then I can explain everything to you.
We hit 67 in the last peak, 67, 68, so we didn't make it to 100. And we hit 16 on this bottom. But if you kind of look at the pattern, you look at how far it tends to go off the bottom of the pattern, it would strike me that the next run ought to take us to about 100. And that would probably be sometime within the next 2 years. And then that 100 would probably correct down to 40, we're higher than it is today. And then the 40, wave up from there might take us to, 200, 250, something like that. I mean, it's, it tends to go in waves. I mean, we've seen these cycles since it was formed. I mean, these were at much smaller degrees, but I mean, it went to 1,000, then it went back down to 200 or 300. I mean,
according to Lepard, recent turmoil in the banking system has provided a renewed enthusiasm to Bitcoin proponents because Bitcoin is considered an alternative to the current banking system. Bitcoin is skyrocketing, now up roughly 100% amidst recent bank failures and widespread speculation that the Fed will capitulate. Lepard says that as people become more aware of the dollar's depreciation and government-fueled financial collapses, they'll gravitate toward assets like Bitcoin, gold, and property.
I bought it at 17,000 in Thanksgiving of 2017 and went down to 10, then it went down to 3,500, and I bought more. But so it's quite volatile, as we've seen. But you've got two things going on here that support it. One, you've got an adoption curve. I mean, I was involved in investing in the internet. Reminds me a lot of the internet. More and more people are becoming aware of it. More and more people are using it. The second thing you've got going on is you've got this underlying thing that's driving gold as well, which is the monetary debasement. So you've kind of got two trends that push it. One, just more and more people use it. And you really need to read a little bit about that. I highly recommend a book by Alex Gladstein called Check Your Financial Privilege, which tells you the story of how people are using it around the world, how the unbanked are using it. All you need is a smartphone, and you can make lightning transactions. And there are poor women in Afghanistan doing technology work that couldn't figure out how to get paid. They're getting paid Bitcoin on their smartphone through the Lightning Network. And there are thousands of stories like that. Domestics working overseas, sending their money back in the form of Bitcoin so they don't have to pay the usurious fees to Western Union. So, these kinds of applications, or we call them use cases, are going to spread the development of this thing as time goes by. And, the fixed supply and the fact that, savings in this asset have tended to grow over time. If you take a 5-year perspective, there's never been a 5-year period where even if you bought at the peak, you weren't ahead. In fact, something on the web recently I saw that was very interesting. If you started buying Bitcoin at the peak at $68,000 a year and change ago, and you bought an equal amount between then and today, every week, you just turned positive on your investments because it was 68, it went down to 16. Okay. And it's called dollar cost averaging. Dollar
cost averaging, yeah.
Right, and now it's at 30, and you're positive. You're net ahead, even though you started buying at 68. So and that's how I recommend people to do it. Actually, is to dollar cost average into it because it is volatile. There's no doubt. And I'll explain that very quickly why. It's because Bitcoin has a decentralized management structure, decentralized organization structure. And it's because Bitcoin has a known monetary policy where there'll only be 21 million of them. Every other cryptocurrency, in my opinion, is an unregulated security. It has a CEO, and they have a policy of issuing some number of tokens based upon what the CEO or others say. And as long as that's the case, it's really just like the government. They can dilute their crypto. And so all crypto, in my opinion, is a fraud. Bitcoin is actually an important technological innovation, which is immutable digital scarcity. Sam Bankman-Fried, basically rug pulled, billions, literally billions of dollars, bigger than Bernie Madoff, right? Billions of dollars of capital from unsuspecting investors who had money in his FTX organization. And where was the SEC when this was going down? I mean, those of us in the crypto industry or in the investment industry focused on Bitcoin, we knew Bankman-Fried was a fraud. We were like that guy who was calling out Madoff, Markopoulos. I mean, we basically knew Bankman-Fried was a fraud. It was so obvious. And yet, Gary Gensler was sitting on his thumbs. And there's some who've even said, as you pointed out pre-show, that maybe it was intentional. They wanted to blow up crypto. But the point is, the horse escaped. And now Washington is embarrassed and they're trying to close the barn door. And that's just wrong. They're not making a distinction between crypto and Bitcoin. And more importantly, the horse has already escaped. So I'm not quite sure where she's coming from. I think she probably pulled it and it'll get her votes. She's a corrupt politician. She's never had a salary of over $250,000 a year and she has a $60 million net worth. How does that happen? And it's shocking.
Yeah.
The government has made a very concerted effort to try and shut down banks that are helping the crypto industry. In fact, Barney Frank, who was the author of, Dodd-Frank, was on the board of Signature Bank, and Signature Bank was shut down by the government, and it was not in trouble. And the reason they shut it down is because it was doing a lot of business with these crypto companies, and they didn't like that. We've also seen a company called Custodia run by a woman named Caitlin Long, who's very active on Twitter. It's a company I've invested in, full disclosure, so I believe in her thesis, who is trying to establish a fully reserved bank that does business and would have a stable coin that would work with Bitcoin. And the Federal Reserve has shut her down. And she has basically found out through back channels that has occurred because the major banks in New York, I'm looking at Jamie Dimon and JP Morgan, but I think there are others involved, have gone to Jerome Powell and said, this would not be good for our business. We do not want banks that are focused on Bitcoin in this manner. And so, the Federal Reserve has not granted her the license to build a crypto bank that by law she ought to be entitled to. So, you're seeing the banking lobby and the traditional finance lobby laying the pressure on people in DC to speak out. And there are other representatives and folks in Congress who occasionally came. I can't remember the name of the congressman, but one of the congressmen actually got up on the floor and named Custodia Bank as being a rogue bank, which, first of all, it doesn't even exist yet. It's just an idea. And he spoke out about it, which tells you how threatened they are by it. And so yes, the vested interests in the banking world do not want to see crypto survive. I mean, and let me just give you another example. This is really, we touched on this earlier when you and I talking. So crypto, Bitcoin is Bitcoin, and it's a store of value and so on and so forth. One of the things that's happened in Bitcoin that some people are aware of and others aren't, but I would encourage people to get involved in it and know about it, is something called the Lightning Network. The Lightning Network allows people to move currency, money, between themselves for less than a penny per transaction. And, right now, MasterCard and Visa are charging, 3% or 300 basis points on every single transaction you make using their cards. This would effectively destroy their businesses. And so you can see that there are very big vested interests that do not want to let cryptocurrency disrupt the existing financial, system. The people who run this system, they're very, very rich and they're very, very powerful and they want to defend the system. And so they are going to use every tool they think they can get away with to try to force all of us to comply. I mean, the CBDC that you alluded to is that's a central bank digital currency and we know the Fed has one and we know they beta tested it. And, and to a degree, they probably, in a sense, the scandemic was probably a trial run of some other control mechanisms that they want to use on us in the future.
He pointed out a key advantage that Bitcoin has over gold: its limited supply of 21 million coins. According to Leopard, this scarcity will be central to Bitcoin's long-term price increase. 19 million Bitcoin have already been mined, and only 2 million Bitcoins remain. Once all Bitcoins are mined and accumulated by the big shark investors, well, then the real run to 200K and eventually to 1 million price will start. While Leopard acknowledges that Bitcoin's journey will be volatile, with significant downturns along the way, he remains confident in the technology and its long-term success. However, he identifies governments as potential roadblocks. They may slow down Bitcoin's progress by making it more challenging to enter and exit crypto markets and imposing higher capital gains taxes. Despite these challenges, Leopard believes such actions would demonstrate Bitcoin's lasting presence and solidify its position as the currency of the future. The best strategy to adopt in the current scenario is to buy the dip and dollar cost average if it falls. Bitcoin is volatile, but its adoption and use case is increasing. Bitcoin is a solution to the problems of both capitalist and communist societies.
I don't put anything past these people in power, but I actually am rather optimistic. Most Americans aren't going to fall for this shit. I mean, they're going to tell me to use a CBDC, and I'm going to give them the finger. The only ones who are going to accept the CBDC are the people who are desperate for cash, and of course they'll take that because they literally need it to live. But these kinds of acts and things are blatantly un-American, unconstitutional, and not not based on the principles that this country was founded on. But what would you expect from a very, very corrupt, very, very powerful set of rulers and governors who, think that they can get away with this stuff? And so my view is, as you and I were speaking about offline, our job, you're doing a great job of it through your show. I do it on Twitter and other places. Our job is to try and educate as many of our fellow citizens that, hey, this stuff is bullshit. And these people are lying and they're corrupt. And they say the black letter law is this, and then they violate the laws. I mean, Janet Yellen tells us, she flip-flopped 5 times on whether they were going to back all the banks. I mean, this is a woman who got paid $7 million for giving speeches to the banks. I mean, what could she possibly say that's worth $7 million? Nothing. They gave her $7 million as a bribe so that she would go easy on the regulation of the banks. And that's just the way the system works. As Carlin said, as George Carlin said, it's a big club and we ain't in it. I think the government could slow it down in the kind of things we're talking about. I mean, I think if they decided to make it a crime for using Bitcoin, they decided to tax it at 90%. If all of the governments of the world in a coordinated fashion decided they really wanted to try and kill this, I don't think they'd kill it, but I think they would severely slow it down. Having said that, I think it would also the war would become much more aggressive. Because, it would be a signal to people that, well, why are governments doing this? What is it? Why are they so threatened by this thing? If it's not anything that's good, why does it threaten them? And so I can't really foresee a case where Bitcoin doesn't win in the longer run, but I do foresee cases where there are severe bumps as a result of actions that governments can take. There's not going to be any more Bitcoin created. So that's a very powerful thing. And so, there's 7+ billion people on the planet. There are 21 million of these coins. It's a very sound form of money. As more and more people come to see, I should save in this money, the price is going to go, in my opinion, much higher. I mean, I think we'll hit 100,000, then I think we'll hit 1 million, then I think we'll ultimately hit $10 million a coin. I mean, I'm sure my grandkids will be shocked at people who own one whole coin.